Alrighty, so News of the Week episode on this Saturday evening, and once again, we got a lot of transfer rumors and signings to go over in this News of the Week episode, and it's hard to believe as the month have now turned into February. We are now getting to the month where we're just a couple weeks away from the regular season begin, which means that a lot of these teams are getting ready to make some last minute signing, getting ready in the heat of the preseason to get themselves match fitness. And most importantly for me, at least in this channel, trying to get the season preview done as soon as possible so I can start doing videos related for the upcoming season. And that of course includes my bad prediction that I'm going to be making with the both the Western and Eastern Conference, that is. But with that being said, let us actually first talk about news that is actually not related to transfer rumors and signings, but also hiring when it comes to an academy director position. So the San Jose Earthquakes, they decided to bring back Luchi Gonzalez after they let go of him as the head coach of this team a couple of months ago. They decided to welcome him back as being the academy director of the Quakes Academy, which I think this is a really good hire for the Quakes to decide to bring back Lucha Gonzalez as an academy director because he was part of that Dallas Academy. I think he was also the academy director for that team as well. And we know how good the Dallas Academy is. It's probably the best academy out of all the team in MLS. And knowing the Quakes Academy has also started to rise up in the rankings as one of the better youth academy around the league. It only makes sense. You decided to bring back a guy, and especially bringing in a guy that has a really good history of developing some good talented player. Because one thing that the Quakes have still trying to do, they want to promote within their academy. They want to be started to become a team that is going to get heavily on the academy to bring in some talent, and it also kind of makes sense when you basically have an owner that is relatively cheap and unwilling to spend some big amount of money unless of course Bruce Arena is involved, that you're basically heavily invest in your academy and hope that that will be enough to bring some great academy talent coming out of the Quakes Academy and develop them in the first team and eventually maybe even sold off for a big amount of money. Now, moving on in terms of talk about some of the signings that has happened, and there were definitely some signing that has happened in the last couple of days. Starting with a signing that if you watched my video earlier of the season preview about the Galaxy earlier, you knew that this was a signing that it was gonna happen, and it is official. Sporting KC has officially signed Dejan Joveljic from the LA Galaxy in exchange for $4 million in cash. So one of the thing about this off season and this transfer window that is a little bit different compared to previously is that now teams are able to exchange players based on just cash registration or cash transaction rather than have to use general allocation money in order to trade player. And I believe the new rule says that you can do that for up to two players, and you can also sell two player to another team per season as well. But this is the first time where it's actually being implemented, and that this is a move that, again, as I said about the season preview earlier about the Galaxy, they had to make this move with the cap strain that they were under and unable to re-sign Dejan Joveljic while keeping under the cap. They unfortunately will have to sacrifice him to another team, but still we get a good amount of money in return as that. I'm assuming that's going to be converted into general allocation money. But for Sporting KC, that is a great replacement for Alan Polito. I mean, Dejan Joveljic was an absolute monster doing his time with the Galaxy, and now all of a sudden, I might start to maybe backtrack on what I said about Sporting KC in the season preview not long ago. How I had concerns about this team being a team that maybe is going to go for a transitional period, but looks like their transitional period might be quicker than we think it is. Maybe they'll start to form a new core, and especially with some other signings that they might be adding relatively soon. All of a sudden, maybe the Sporting KC side might not be as bad as I would think heading into this season. Maybe they're not going to just going to go through a bit of a rebuilding season where they might be one of the worst team in the Western Conference. Now, Atlanta United. So Atlanta obviously has finally made the signing of Miguel Almiron. I mean, we knew this was going to happen for a long time, so I'm not going to mention too much about it. But they also had to give Charlotte FC 400,000 general allocation money in discovery rights money, and that's is the kind of kind of amazing part about MLS sometimes where, yeah, again, there's the discovery right rule as stupid as it is. Teams have definitely took advantage of this rule, and good on Charlotte in terms of the fact that yes, unfortunately they miss out on Miguel Almiron, but at the same time they have a chance to at least get a huge amount of in discovery rights money, which I think this is probably the most I've ever seen a team getting discovery rights money. Usually it's relatively low, but this is actually really really high, and it's also kind of laughable the fact that discovery rights has to be used for a player that used to play in MLS. But hey, that's kind of the ceilingness when it comes to the MLS rule. And again, the 400,000, that's not little money that Charlotte gets to play with general allocation. That's a good amount of general allocation money that they can definitely spend on something else as well. But yeah, again, just kind of want to mention in terms of how much that Charlotte, of course, got the discovery rights money. Rather than talk about Miguel Almiron going to Atlanta, considering we already knew that this signing was going to happen. And another signing that we kind of also knew it was going to happen was Inter Miami signing defender Maxi Falcon from Colo Colo, and this is a signings that a couple of weeks ago we talked about in the news of the week episode of him potentially coming to MLS and joining Inter Miami, and especially Miami is doing all the good things this offseason, booster that defense, which is pretty much the biggest Achilles heel last season, and was really probably one of the main reason why they crash out in the first round of the playoffs. And now that they solidify their defense, who knows? Maybe things could go well for a team that definitely is going to be all in heading into this season. Now, one player that is not going to be part of that all-in push to MLS Cup this season is Facundo Farias. So Inter Miami decided that they are going to transfer Facu Farias to Estudiantes. I mean, there's been a lot of move between Estudiantes lately. I'm not sure why that is the case. But one thing for sure is we already know that there is already a player that is going to be going there, and again, Facu Farias is that kind of player, and it's unfortunate in terms of Farias' career with Inter Miami. He was so good before he suffered that torn ACL injury, and some might say that this is kind of a questionable move. Consider he could be a perfect replacement once Messi does leave this team, and this is where again, I go back to what I said before with Inter Miami and my concern about how yes they have all these former Barcelona player and Messi and friends out there, but what happened when they do leave? When they do leave this team, there could be a lot of concern in terms of the players that they of course had, and also even the coaching staff as well, where all of them leaves and now it's going to be just kind of a whole shelf, and they might go back to where they were in their beginning life in MLS, which, before Messi arriving Inter Miami, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know about the struggle that Inter Miami had to go through in their early life in MLS. Now, Minnesota, they made a couple of signing in the last couple of days too. They first signed South Korean midfielder Hon Yun Jeon from Gwangju FC, and then they also signed center back Nicholas Romero from Atletico Tucumán. Now, these two signings also signings I've mentioned already before, so I'm not going to get too much into it other than the fact that the Loons they are finally able to check off some of the biggest need that they need in terms of this offseason. Ideally, I would love for them to get a DP number 6, although I heard there's a report saying that they're not going to get a DP number 6 instead of getting a U22 number 6 instead, which I don't think that's a bad idea as well, unless we'll find out whether if of course worked out. Like for me, ideally, I would love to have a DP6 rather than a U22 initiative number 6. But if that U22 initiative number 6 turns out to be just as well, I'm not going to complain on that about that. But either way, getting these two players, these was kind of in terms of one of the biggest need. Obviously, Nicholas Romero is clearly the Miguel Tapia's replacement that this Minnesota team needed, and also maybe even the Michael Boxall replacement. Consider Michael Boxall, I think he's probably going to have a year or two left with this team before for the Loons maybe think about moving on from him. And then of course the midfield. This has been one of the biggest weakness of this team in terms of solidify that spot. Now, obviously, because they are solidifying the midfield, unfortunately, that also kind of comes in the cost of the fact that I've heard Hassani Dotson have requested a trade, and it's going to be interesting to see whether if the Loons will honor that trade request, and especially be interesting to see how much game they're gonna get back on that because Hassani Dotson, if he does move on to another club, obviously, I mean, I'm gonna be dearly miss him, and especially the banger only trademark that he has. But I can understand why he wants a trade, considering that there's already pieces that this Minnesota team has in terms of replacing some of their midfield pieces that just are not good enough when it comes to be a legitimate contender in the Western Conference. Now, Cincinnati, they have signed Paraguayan defender Gilberto Flores, and this is another signing that I've already mentioned before, so I'm not going to go too detail other than the fact that it's a good depth signing that the Cincinnati backline desperately needed. I mean, this backline for Cincinnati is not too bad, but the depth is what's lacking of this team, and the depth of the defense is kind of one of the reason why they kind of falter late in the season. All their best defender basically went down, and they just don't have enough depth, and really just kind of ran out of center backs in terms of continue to be a contender in the Eastern Conference. And from what I heard, he's a decent player, especially for depth reason. And yeah, just like Minnesota, checking also the biggest need that they had. Cincinnati can definitely check off one of the biggest need that they have, which is more depth, especially on the defensive end. And then the New York Red Bulls have signed Raheem Edwards off of free agency. So again, this is another move that I'm not going to talk too much about because we talked about in the last news of the week episode. I think he's a decent option. I mean, he's been kind of a bit of a castaway. He's been bouncing around the league the last couple of years. That is Raheem Edwards, but he still can be a very good versatile and a utility piece for a team, especially in the wing back position. Now, moving on in terms of some of the players that is going to be going to another club and an MLS team decide to move on from their club at least, or move on from these players at least temporarily. First of all, we saw FC Dallas loaning midfielder Enes Salah to Saudi club Al Riyadh. Now, this is something that we don't usually see happen, which is an MLS team decided to loan a players to the Saudi league. Well, we have seen it before, but we don't usually see it as a loan. We usually see it more like a transfer that is, and it's interesting to see a youngster like him going to the Saudi league. I mean, the Saudi league, obviously, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding that league throughout. It's definitely not a develop player development league. It's more of just getting all the bright young talent, or even some guys that are pretty much over the hill for one last paycheck because a lot of those clubs just have so much money to burn at as a resort. So yeah, this is kind of interesting for him to continue his development with a Saudi club and hope that he can continue his development as well. Because from what I heard from Dallas fans, they were actually pretty happy they move on from him because he used to considered to be one of the more brighter talent coming out of the Dallas Academy, but his progress really slowed down, especially this season as well. He didn't really do that well with North Texas SC, the Dallas affiliate. So we'll see whether or not him going to Saudi Arabia and going to a Saudi club will help his player development. My answer is probably no, but we'll see how this, of course, would turns out. And then speaking of player development, so NYCFC have loaned Jovan Mijatovic to Belgian club OD Leuven. Now, Jovan Mijatovic, he's another player that NYCFC bought last off season, and there was a lot of hope, at least from the City Football Group, that he could be a great player, especially a great young player that is. Didn't really quite worked out, and now he's going to be going back to Europe, and hopefully him going to this Belgian club will continue his player development as well. Because again, for a lot of money that NYCFC spent on the guy, and kind of turns out to be a bit of a bust. I hope that is not the case. I mean, NYCFC did very well, and at least City Football Group once again did very well last offseason in terms of really bringing some really good young players to help that NYCFC team to get themselves back into the playoffs. But for all those good signings, you also have a guy like Jovan Mijatovic just really never worked out for NYCFC and really never got that player development that he should have gone, and all the hype that's around him after that big money move that NYCFC decided to bring him last off season. And then Charlotte FC, they have loaned João Pedro to Portuguese club Real Avenue. So again, this is another player that he had his fair share of moments with the main team as well. He's mostly played for Crown Legacy as well, and now that he's going to be going to Europe, maybe a chance for him to continue to develop his career like he did with Charlotte and even with the MLS Next Pro team that is Crown Legacy. Now, moving on in terms of talk about transfer rumors, and boy, did we had some juicy transfer rumor that happened this morning, did we? Because we had a report suggest today that the Houston Dynamo is looking to get Union midfielder Jack McGlynn. That is something just completely out of left field. And I've said before that the Union is definitely getting rid of some of their players. They're definitely getting rid of their old core in terms of going through a bit of a transitional period heading into this upcoming season. But even if they were doing that, I did not think they were going to get rid of Jack McGlynn, especially the quality that he has, and especially with the way that there's a chance that they can get a huge amount of money for him once they decide to sell him off to Europe. I would not think they were going to move on from him, and especially decide to move on from to another MLS team. Now it's also going to be interesting to see how this deal is going to be. I'm assuming the union is probably going to get a bit of a sell-on fee on this as well. But yeah, I mean, I definitely did not expect Jack McGlynn to be moving on to the union to another MLS team. But give credit to the Houston Dynamo. I mean, they needs to make some signings this offseason. It's been a very quiet offseason for this Dynamo team, which is kind of something that frustrates a lot of Dynamo fans because it feels like it's the exact same thing in terms of the last off season, and that's why they kind of took a step back. But getting Jack McGlynn, that is going to really boost that midfield, and I would say probably a perfect replacement for Coco Carrasquilla as well, because the quality that Jack McGlynn has shown during his time with the Union is almost right up there in terms of the same quality that Coco Carrasquilla delivered to this team. Now, the Philadelphia Union is also finalizing a deal to sign Serbian midfielder Jovan Lukic. Now, this guy, I don't know too much about this guy other than the fact that he is a youngster um, coming out of Serbia. And again, this is clearly a replacement for Jack McGlynn if they do decide to move on from him. And this is where the frustration started to come from some Union fans. The fact that yes, they understand that maybe the front office and especially uh Ernest Tanner started to refresh the team and maybe change do a makeover throughout this off season. But at the same time, there were some pieces that they have, and especially young talented pieces that they have on their team where they don't really necessarily need to be part of this clean out that they have this off season, and bringing a guy that is relatively unknown to replace Jack McGlynn. I mean, they better hope that he is just as good as Jack McGlynn because McGlynn is going to leave a huge hole to this Union midfielder, and if this guy didn't doesn't really quite step up and do well, then there's going to be a lot of Union fans going to question this move, especially question the move of deciding to move on from Jack McGlynn and decide to trade him to the Houston Dynamo. Now, speaking of midfielder, another notable name that could be the sign with another MLS team is Edouard Atuesta, and I'm kind of surprised nobody has got him considered. I think he had his option declined for LAFC, so he's actually a free agent. Well, Orlando City is looking to capitalize that by getting him soon. Now, obviously, Edouard Atuesta, he definitely wasn't the same player as he was in his first stint with LAFC, and that kind of plays the role of why I think LAFC decided to not bring him back. I also think maybe it could be the system that he was in. Doing his first stint, he was in the Bob Bradley system, and he worked out really well. He didn't really quite fit in the Steve Cherundolo system. So we'll see with him going to Oscar Pereira's system and going to Orlando City whether he can rediscover his good form that he used to have. Because it's hard to believe that this guy was a hotly commander kind of player a couple of years ago with LAFC, with how good he was. There was already a lot of talk of him going to Europe or even going to South America. He eventually did go to South America to join Palmeiras. Didn't really quite work out, and ever since that, yeah, his career has kind of gone a bit of a downward trend compared to what it was just a couple of years ago. And then the New York Red Bulls, they're looking to bring back an old name and especially an old captain off them by bringing back Tim Parker. as well. Now, I didn't think that this was going to be the case where they decided to bring some nostalgia back by bringing back Tim Parker. And I gotta say, Tim Parker, he still can be one of the better the defender in this league as well. And I'm kind of surprised, St. Louis decided to move on from him as well. But the Red Bulls wouldn't care. They would love to bring back their old captain into the roster and even solidify that back line even more. I mean, that's kind of the strength of this Red Bulls team. I think their back line is really good, even if they do lose probably one of their better center back in Andres Reyes. And in fact, you could maybe even argue this is the Andres Reyes replacement as well. But certainly they would absolutely love to bring back Tim Parker, and also kind of a fan favorite too, because a lot of Red Bulls fans actually really like Tim Parker when he was with the Red Bulls a couple of years ago, all the way back in 2018. Now, moving on to the next news. So, Estudiante is actually now getting closer than ever before to sign Lucho Acosta, as they already agree the fee with FC Cincinnati, and now it's just going to be a matter of time between players to agree with the deal, and also having the medical as well. And this pretty much kind of also confirmed that yes, indeed, Lucho Acosta is going to be moving on to Cincinnati, and this is also where it will be interesting to see that if Lucho Acosta does go to Estudiante and moving away from Cincinnati, the Cincinnati really gunning to get Evander, because for a while we've been talking about how it seems like Evander is gonna move on from the Timbers. He's gonna go to Cincinnati, but that move only happened if Lucho Acosta does move to Estudiante. Well, now it seems like that is the case. I'm assuming the Evander deal looks like that could be on for Cincinnati, and this is going to be very interesting to see for Cincinnati losing a guy like Lucho Costa that is a heart and soul of this team and replace him with Evander. I mean, don't get me wrong, Evander is also really good, especially near the second half of the season. He was MVP level. That is, but does he fit the Pat Nolan system? That's the one thing that you want to do, and especially when you try to replace a guy with another decent player, it doesn't always work out that way, especially the system that they run. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see as the season goes along. But either way, from what I also heard in terms of the fees, it's not as much as Cincinnati were hoping for to get Lucho Acosta. I think it was like $4 or $5 million, which that is criminally underrated rated and criminally low for the talent that Lucho Acosta has. But I guess maybe that amount is relatively low, mainly because Lucho Acosta, you can clearly see he does not want to be with FC Cincinnati, especially after him not reporting to training until just recently. Um, in these last couple of weeks. Now, Atlanta United is also looking to finally finalize the deal to sign Emmanuel Latilaf from Middlesbrough for $22 million and some add-on. I believe that fee actually have now gone up. Originally it was $18 million. Now it's going to be $22 million. And again, this has been a deal that they've been working pretty much throughout the almost the entire off season. This deal probably should have been done a couple of weeks ago, but now it seems like it's getting closer than ever to be a reality. And again, to bring a guy that is for 22 million, which will break the record for the biggest transfer in league history. Yeah, Atlanta is really banking that this is the guy that will be just as good as what Yakimakis and Joseph Martinez was with this team. And anytime when you sign that big amount of money, they're really hoping that this is the guy to do so. And a lot of people say he is going to be the guy to do so, and he will be a good replacement for Yakimakis. But again, going back to when I first talked about this move, I was a little bit hesitant, especially with the amount that is. I thought it could have been a little bit lower, and the fact that now it has increased, that just makes it even more skeptical whether or not if this, of course, work out. Because if this works out, then yeah, I think even if it's a little bit high in terms of the fee, Atlanta would absolutely take it. But if it doesn't work out, especially if it doesn't work out from the get go, boy oh boy, this could be one of the worst signing we seen in recent memory. And the only good thing that Atlanta can come out of that is at least they break the record for the biggest transfer amount for a player to come to an MLS club. And then the Vancouver Whitecaps, they have announced that they are going to sell Stuart Armstrong to Sheffield Wednesday. By the way, I forgot to write the name Stuart Armstrong. That is, I said that they're set to complete a permanent transfer to Sheffield Wednesday. That didn't make any sense whatsoever. But yeah, the Whitecaps they decided to sell Stuart Armstrong to Sheffield Wednesday, and that's a bit of a surprising sell considering he was only here for a couple of months. I didn't think this was going to be a rental. I thought he was going to be a permanent feature for this Whitecaps team heading into this upcoming season, but no, that doesn't seem like it is going to be the case. And now there's a lot of concern if you're a Whitecaps fans about the fact that not only this team has had a really quiet off season, they really don't have a lot of player on their roster. They're very short on their roster. And keep in mind, this is a team that is going to be competing in competition like the Concacaf Champions Cup and also the Canadian Championship as well. So with that thin of a roster and you have multiple competition that you have to do, and not to mention they also have a new head coach as well. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of concern in terms of the Whitecaps fan base. And I think this all started with the way that, remember how in the beginning of the off season there was talks of the fact that the Whitecaps was going to be sold off to a new ownership and they still haven't been able to do so. I wonder that's kind of the reason why they're not making signings because the current ownership they don't want to make a move because they're too focused on in terms of making the sale of, of this team. And when that of course is the case, boy, that there is a lot of concern. You got to say if you're a Whitecaps fans, the fact that the ownership is thinking about selling the team rather than actually thinking about what this team is gonna be heading into the upcoming season. And it's kind of sad to see because on paper, when it comes to the remaining squad that they have, they could be a playoff contender. But that is if that entire roster stays healthy, and we know that does not work like that for this season, especially when you play in multiple competition. Guys are going to get injured and miss time, and there's a lot of concern in the Whitecaps fan base that they might not be ready heading into this upcoming season with a very short-handed roster. And as we've seen before with teams heading into the season with a short-handed roster, they usually do not do well in the beginning of this season or even for the rest of the season. That is. Now, the New York Red Bulls, they're also report to sign Chilean international left back Marcelo Morales. So this is another signing that I think Red Bulls fans are going to be excited about because from what I heard, he's a very good player, and especially have already made a couple of cap appearance from for the Chilean national team. And yeah, again, they're going to this is definitely considered to be a very exciting signing. And again, I talk about the back line for this Red Bull team already very good. This just makes it even better if they can complete the deal of the signings. Now, moving on in terms of talking about news that's not related to transfer rumors and signings. So I kind of had a laugh in this when I heard the fact that FIFA said that they have posted a warning to fans and players of potential heat risk for the upcoming World Cup. And the reason why I kind of had a laugh in terms of that is, didn't I just had a World Cup in Qatar where that was also a big concern? And didn't we also know that the next World Cup in 2030, which is going to be host in different country, in fact, in different continent as well. It's going to start in South America, eventually make their way to Europe as well. And I heard it looks like they're going to be playing games in Spain and Morocco as well. Yeah, those places in the summer, it's even more hotter. You could even argue than some of the weather in the U.S. And what's kind of interesting is that some of the venue in the U.S. are also indoor venue as well. And I know obviously FIFA would want to say that they don't want some of these venue to close their roof. They need to have these game open roof that is. And if that is the case, then that may be understandable in terms of the heat risk that is. Imagine if you have an open roof at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta in the middle of the summer. I mean, there's a reason why Atlanta United never opened their roof in the middle of the summer in Atlanta because if you ever been to Atlanta in the middle of summer, it is not only just hot, but it is humid. It's just basically disgusting weather to play outdoor. That is so that may be kind of the reason why they warn fans and players there's a heat risk, but at the same time, in classic FIFA fashion, it feels like they're just kind of contradict themselves by warning fans about that, not knowing that yeah, the previous World Cup also had the same problem, and the next World Cup that we're going to be playing is also going to have the same problem as well. And then the 2025 Leeds Cup format, it has now officially revealed. And apparently, when I look at this format, originally I was actually very confused by this. Everything that I actually look at Reddit, and there were some fans that actually explained how the format is, and I kind of got a better understanding. So basically, the format, there's going to be like two phases. Phase number one is kind of like a group stage phase where each teams are going to be facing against Free Liga MX team, and then after the free match is over, whoever finished in the top four spot, depending on which league standings, whether it's MLS league standing or Liga MX league standing and the Leeds Cup standings, is going to be moving on into the knockout round, and then it's pretty much kind of like a traditional knockout round, except for the fact that basically the first seed of Liga MX is going to be facing against the fourth seed in MLS, the second seed of Liga MX facing against the third seed in MLS, and then vice versa, of course. So yeah, I do like the format, albeit it is kind of confusing how they explain it at first. At least that means that we don't have like repetitive kind of match between MLS versus MLS matchup in the Leeds Cup. That was a big problem with the Leeds Cup, where these repetitive matchup. Why in the world are we having these kind of matchup? When we've seen it in league play, and those matchup also draw very little fans, if any, to the game itself. So it's a little bit better, and also I might think that it might even be a little bit faster compared to previous format. Although don't quote on me on that. I think it's probably still going to be the same lane. So one thing I will say about the Leeds Cup, it's not going to pause the season, unlike previous year, which I like that. I like the fact that the season is not paused as well. Although I wonder if that mainly because of the Club World Cup that we have this year, and also the World Cup that we're going to have next year here in the U.S. That is definitely going to pause the MLS season. And then lastly, the final news in this News of the Week episode, we see FC Cincinnati expecting to move forward of an entertainment district near the stadium. That of course include a brand new hotel built in the stadium, and also a couple of more entertainment option as well. I like when teams decided to do that, and obviously I know there are other teams that is trying to do the same thing as well, providing an entertainment district. Because one thing that it's great to obviously go to the game itself, but it would be nice if you can also do something before going to the venue, or even after the game is over, you can go to another places that is. And a lot of fans, they don't want to just go into the stadium and get some food there, consider how expensive it is. So there's an option now that if you build an entertainment district around, you can basically get the food before you go into the stadium. Now, I'm not sure if those foods are going to be as cheap as it is at the stadium, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be, because if you ever go to MLS game, which I've been to a lot, you know how expensive concession is. Unless of course you're going to Atlanta United games. Consider Mercedes-Benz Stadium has been the pioneer when it comes to these cheap concession stands, that I wish every MLS team, and really every sports team in the US, can take a note on that. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for this News of the Week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, which I'm assuming there has to be, because again, throughout these last couple of days, with just so many news has happened in the past couple of days, I might have missed one or two news that I didn't mention. But if that's the case, let me know in the comments below, as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.